Alright, what's going on YouTube? I know it's been a while since I made this type of lifestyle videos last, but today I just want to talk about my internship search experience and how I landed my current internship. This is something you guys have been asking me to make a video about. I've been extremely busy with school and final exams, but now I have the time, so let's talk about it. And also, if you're new here, my name is Levi. I'm a software engineering major in college, and I pretty much make videos about tech and software engineering here on YouTube. So if that's something you're interested in, then consider subscribing. So let's first talk about why did I want to get an internship in the first place. So I'm an IT major with a track in software engineering, and at my college, you're required to do an internship. So for my specific program, I am required to do 3 internship rotations before I can even graduate, so it's a requirement. And I know that not every college does it, but it's just something we do at my college. So my first rotation for my internship was scheduled to be summer of 2025, and I pretty much started applying in summer of 2024. I think June or July to be specific. And honestly speaking, I really expected the internship search process to be very straightforward and easy, just because I thought that I already had, valuable experience and not professional experience, talking about more of, project experience. But spoiler alert, that wasn't the case. My internship search process was brutal. And I'm not even joking when I say this. It was back-to-back rejections, and the most annoying one wasn't even the rejections, it was the ghosting. It's like you just apply for this job and you don't hear anything back. That was the most annoying one. So I think I applied to over 300 or 400 jobs just between the space of July 2024 till, February of 2025. And right from June of 2024 was when I started getting these rejections, like back to back. I would say out of the 400 jobs I applied to, about 100 or about 100 and something were, all rejections, and the rest were just plain out ghosting. So fast forward to about August or September of 2024, that was when we started the fall semester. And going back to school during the fall semester, I knew a good amount of my friends who already landed, summer internships for 2025. And that just demoralized me and just, tanked my self-esteem. I would say that was probably my most lowest point throughout this whole job search process, the fall of 2024, just knowing that, every other person around you already has something secured for summer of 2025, and you haven't even interviewed for one position yet. Like, it took a toll on me mentally. Like, I can't even start to describe how I felt towards the end of the year 2024. And honestly speaking, I began to doubt my own skills and even doubt if, software engineering is what I actually want to do. Because there wasn't really any valid explanation or a valid reason why someone will be applying for an internship position from June or July of 2024 till about October or November of 2024 and can land one single interview. The only thing that could come to my head was I wasn't good enough, or maybe software engineering isn't what I actually want to do. Like, why did I even continue applying? It's honestly you guys, because, not just even here on YouTube. I'm talking about both YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. There are a lot of people who I would say look up to me, and me giving up and calling it quits just because I couldn't land an internship. I was like, what kind of message will I send to these people if I just decide, okay, I don't want to do software engineering anymore? It's basically me going against what I've been preaching on social media for so long. I stopped applying for a good month. So the whole of January, I wasn't applying to any jobs or any internships. I started applying again in February of 2025. And just to talk a little bit about the application process and how I was applying, I was basically using any job platform that existed on the internet. Think about any job platform, that comes to mind like right now. I have applied on that platform. But I was mainly active on LinkedIn and Handshake. And most of you guys might not know what Handshake is because it's a job application board for college students. So companies basically post job offerings on Handshake with the intention to hire, either interns or hire entry-level, positions of people who are just graduating from college. And I know a lot of people, look at LinkedIn as, a job application platform. I would say LinkedIn is more of a networking platform than a platform for you to go apply for jobs. I would say your best bet if you're trying to apply for jobs or internship is to go through any school board like Handshake, where companies post job postings specifically for students, or just go directly to the company's career website. Like, ditch LinkedIn. I don't know anyone specifically that has gotten a job from LinkedIn. I'm not saying there is no one who, got a job from LinkedIn. I'm just saying personally, I haven't, seen anyone who applied to a job on LinkedIn got an interview and actually got an offer. Like, I have never seen. And when I started applying back in February of 2025, I changed up my resume. I wasn't using the same resume I was using in June, July of 2024. I basically switched up my project. So between that time, there was a project I was working on, which was a fitness application that helps users count their calories. I had just completed that project, so I took away one of the older projects on my resume and I replaced it with this fitness application. And when I talk about the interview process for the offer I have, this project actually played a huge role to why I got that offer. But yeah, I changed up my resume, I changed the layout, I took out some sections, I actually took out my job experience that wasn't related to tech, and I just removed the job experience section in general, and I just replaced it with project. I also changed up the wordings of my skills a little bit to make it sound more technical. And one thing I actually learned from a career fair that I attended at school was, if you are a US citizen, right, and you're trying to apply for a job in the US, make it clear on your resume that you're a US citizen or you're a US permanent resident, because sometimes jobs stereotype you just from your name. So if they look at my name, so my last name is Okoye, right? It's a popular Nigerian name. So if they look at that name, they will assume this person requires sponsorship for this position, and most companies don't want to sponsor interns because you don't really have much value to give to the company for them to sponsor you. So if they look at your name and they basically assume that you need sponsorship, they just pass on your resume. And that was something I did differently, and I made sure to put it on my resume that I was a US citizen. And I was actually surprised that every single person I knew was doing the same thing. They were putting their legal status on their resume, and for some reason I had no clue about it until someone told me. And just doing all this, adding my legal status, swapping out my projects and putting in newer projects, switching up the wordings of my skills to make it sound more technical, actually made a huge difference. I noticed I was getting a lot more coding assessment invitations, which I wasn't getting in 2024. And I can't talk about my internship search process if I don't talk about the people, who helped me and, supported me. I had people who were sending me job applications or internship applications, and was also, offering to, put in a referral for me, which, shout out to Emmanuel, who referred me to one internship position that I actually interviewed for, but didn't end up getting an offer. And this internship position was for a huge fast food company in the US. And if I was to mention the name of the company, you would definitely know who I'm talking about. So basically, Emmanuel was working at this company as a cybersecurity intern in summer of 2024, and he knew I was looking for my next internship opportunity for summer 2025. So he put in a referral for me, and I didn't even have to apply for the job. I got an interview, and it was basically 4 rounds of interview, 2 behavioral interviews and 2 technical interviews. I bumped the interview because I can't even tell you why, but if I was to actually give an excuse, I would say it was because I haven't interviewed for, a technical job or for a technical position. That felt like a new experience to me. But yeah, I absolutely bumped that interview, and I actually felt bad because me and Emmanuel already made plans on how we were going to move to Atlanta and, be roommates while we, both intern at the same company. So like, we already had plans going, but, God had a different plan. That didn't work out the way we planned. And also shout out to Omakos, man. He was sending me internship applications from his network almost every week. And I would say out of all the, applications he sent me, I got to the coding assessment stage of those, applications for about 3 of the positions. So I would say, yeah, that was very helpful. And that kind of prepared me for, the final interview I had, which led to an offer. But talking about the offer I have right now, it's a software engineering internship position at a top financial company. It's actually a Fortune 500 company in the US, and I don't want to mention the name of the company, of course, but yeah, it's a well-known finance company here in the US. But just speaking on how I actually found the position in the first place, so it was actually on Handshake. I found this job application on Handshake, and funny enough, it was one of the last applications I sent out before I stopped applying for internships in general, because during the final week of February 2025, I decided to stop applying, and I was like, if nothing comes out from all the applications I've already sent out, I'm just not going to intern this summer, and I'll probably use my summer to do something else. So I already made up my mind that if none of my applications, work out, I'm still good. But luckily, after I sent out that final application, I just mentioned the name of the company. But after I sent out that final application, my company was one of the companies I sent out an application to. They reached back out to me 2 days after I applied, and we set up an interview for March 2nd of 2025. and I got my offer March 17th of 2025. So from when I applied to when I got my offer was roughly about 3 weeks, and the interview process was, it was about 2 weeks from March 2nd to March 17th. But this company was very different from all the other companies I have applied to, and I'm speaking specifically about the interviewing process. It was very different from all the companies I had already applied to. Every single step of the interview was just very different from what, I was already used to. The behavioral interview wasn't your, typical behavioral interview. And I don't want to, share specific information about the interview process just because, but just to put it simply, I had to explain or discuss a technical concept to a panel of non-technical people. So picture 2 to 3 people who have no technical experience, no technical background, and my job was to explain a technical concept to this panel of non-technical people in a way they would understand that concept to the T. But like I said, that was very unusual, and I was kind of scared going into that first round of interview because that is something I have never done at an interview before. But low-key, I was prepared just because this is something I do on social media. I basically explain technical concepts to people who I assume have no technical experience, right? So that kind of prepared me for this first round of interview. But yeah, I went into the interview and I explained the concept of microservices and API gateways, and they actually had a bunch of questions, which I wasn't surprised because if you're explaining the concepts of microservices, which is a complex concept for people who even have technical experience, I understood them having a lot of questions. And that whole first round of interview was just me using analogies to explain the concept of microservices and API gateways. Because in my experience, the best way to explain a technical concept to someone who doesn't have any technical experience is to use analogies. That is the best way for them to understand what you're saying. And I'll say one thing that actually helped me aside from using analogies was using the company's actual system to explain the concept of microservices and API gateways. I was telling them, how you open the company's app, your company basically has a bunch of microservices that is responsible for loading this app's experience, and the job of the API gateway is to reach out to those specific services to get all the data it needs to load your app's experience. So that made them understand the concept better just because I was using analogies, and I was also using a system they could relate to. The 2 other rounds of interviews were plainly technical interviews, and it was very technical in my opinion. They asked a bunch of questions about my personal project, which was very different from all the other companies I have interviewed at. Just from my experience from that interview, I would tell anybody, when you're building your project, know what you did and know why you did what you did. The guys who did my technical interviews were 2 guys from the company, a solutions architect and a principal engineer. So these guys were very technical. They were basically asking me how I implemented this and why I did what I did. These guys were really interested in a specific feature I had in my fitness application. So in that fitness application, at the end of the week, the app basically takes all the food the user consumed throughout the week and sends it to OpenAI to kind of summarize all the calorie information and the macro information and sends it back to the user, giving them generic advice about, their diet. So when you sign up onto the application, you basically have a goal. So let's say your goal is to lose weight and your calorie intake is supposed to be 2,500 calories and you're supposed to eat a specific gram of protein. So the whole point of, sending all that food data to OpenAI is to kind of, analyze the data and compare it against the user goal and give them, generic advice like, hey, eat less carbs, eat more protein, or, slow down on your calorie intake. So just basically generic advice. One of the guys who was doing my interview asked me, why did I use OpenAI to implement that feature? And if OpenAI didn't exist, will I still be able to implement that same feature and how will I go about it? That was a question I wasn't prepared to answer, but I was able to answer it just because I knew what I did and I knew why I did what I did when I was building that project. So yeah, the whole technical interview was just asking a whole bunch of scenario-based technical questions like, you're working on a team and your database queries are this expensive and how would you optimize this? So just basically a bunch of scenario-based technical questions. It was a bunch of scenario-based questions with very little context, and thinking about it now, they actually did that on purpose because they wanted you to ask clarifying questions, because just with the context they give you, they know that you can answer that question correctly with just the little amount of context you were given. They want you to think about, follow-up questions, ask those clarifying questions, then think about the best solution to the scenario. Like I was telling you guys, it's not the typical interview we are all used to, like the lead code style interview. It was very scenario based and very technical. It was most likely things you were going to experience on the job, which I was very grateful for. And I would say just me switching out my project and adding this fitness application I had just completed recently actually made me stand out, because that application had a lot of little technical bits that you don't find in a typical intern project. And I was also lucky that the guys who were interviewing me were also very technical, and they could appreciate those little technical decisions I made while I was building the application. But yeah, after the final round of interview, I got my offer 2 days later. I can't even begin to describe how excited I was when I got that call. I was actually sleeping, and I woke up from that sleep and I was like, God, thank you. Just looking back now to when I was being rejected, I'm just really glad I didn't give up, just because, if I had given up back then in December of 2024, I wouldn't have applied to this job, and I'll probably just be at home the whole of this summer. And like, again, it's thanks to you guys, because, thanks for, giving me that motivation and that push to not quit and just keep going. And if you're someone who's also, currently applying for internships or, entry-level jobs, I would say, a couple of things I would tell you. First of all, I would say switch up your resume. Like, it wouldn't hurt for you to, switch up your resume, take out your old projects, add in new projects, change the wordings of your resume to make it sound a little bit more technical. Also, if you have a job experience on your resume that isn't related to the job you're applying to or the internship you're applying to, just take it out. Like, there is no point them, reading through that job experience if it doesn't have anything to do with who they're looking for, if that makes sense. So take it out and fill that space up with projects. And also, I would say emphasize your soft skills as well, because that was something the HR actually commented about my resume. The HR of the company I'm actually working at right now, when I was interviewing, she specifically pointed out my soft skills and told me that she doesn't see a lot of interns highlight their soft skills in their resume. Most people focus on the technical skills, but your soft skills is also as important as your technical skills. So just make sure you're highlighting your soft skills on your resume. Also, one thing I will tell you is work on your communication, because you can have very little experience, very little job experience, and very little project experience, but if you can communicate and articulate that very little experience you have in a way that makes you sound assertive, it will actually make you stand out compared to someone who has an extensive experience but can't properly articulate what they've worked on. Spend as much time practicing your communication. Explain your project to your friends, your family members. Try and articulate your project concisely in a way that makes you sound assertive. And lastly, if you're not getting any positive, results from applying, I would say don't blame yourself. It's not a you problem. You most likely have the skills and you're most likely qualified for the job. So it's not a you problem. It's more of a problem with the job market. There are people who have, extensive experience who can get jobs, but are also applying for entry-level jobs that are made for people who are coming out of college. So just know there's competition. You're not just competing amongst people on your level, you're also competing amongst people who have more experience than you but are also trying to get the jobs you're looking for. So just keep applying, keep sending out your resumes, look for people who can refer you to jobs. Applying to those career websites and applying through your school is nice, but I would say you will have a better chance if you know someone who can refer you to a job, right? You have a higher chance of landing an interview that way. So definitely build your network, go attend meetups, go to technical meetups, career fairs and stuff like that. Get as much contact information as possible, make connections, build connections, and also follow up with people, right? You never know when you will need that person's help in the future. Just know that once you're applying, all you need is just one person to say yes. It doesn't matter how many jobs you've applied to, all you need is just one person to say yes. But yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Just share a little bit about my internship search process and what worked for me. I'm really excited to get started, and going forward I'll be making a lot more day in the life content just to share with you guys what the experience is like, give you guys first-hand experience, what it's like being an intern. And the really cool thing about having your first internship is that getting the second one is going to be significantly easier than how it was when you were trying to get your first internship. So I'm just really excited to go start this internship, meet the people, and just build connections. But yeah, that's just kind of everything I wanted to talk about today. If you have any questions about my internship search process, or if you need any advice, just go ahead and drop it in the comment section. I'm going to be replying to every single comment. Or better still, feel free to follow me on Instagram, send me a DM on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram, so I'll most likely see your message. Thank you guys for watching till this point, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.